Traditional methods of education and hiring are starting to lose their sheen as new methods of providing valuable teaching see people become more desired for more jobs. TickerWork, it starts right now.
TickerWork, presented by IntoWork Australia, the leading national providers of employment skills and support.
Hello and welcome back to TickerWork. I'm your host Mike Loader, and the traditional tiered model of education seems simple on the face of it. Start in preschool and then primary and high school and apprenticeship and perhaps university, and then you get to start the process all over again. But while the consistent use of this traditional model may seem like a good idea, the over-reliance on it is actually a disadvantage, not only to students but the community at large. One size certainly does not fit all, and vocational education and training has now made its way into high schools, exploring a trade as a pathway, and it's got many advantages over theory-based or classroom learning as well. It's more hands-on, focuses on the individual's exposure to the chosen industry, addresses skill shortages in the community, and can provide a pathway to an apprenticeship and direct employment. As our economy continues to strengthen after a long series of lockdowns, there is a greater demand for skills-based training, and secondary school is a great place to start gaining the necessary skills and experience as well. And joining me to discuss trade pathways in school is Poul, the Group CEO of IntoWork Australia, a leading national provider of services that support economic and social participation through employment, training, recruitment and corporate solutions. Poul, you guys do it all. Thank you so much for joining me.
Great to be here, Mike.
So I guess the first question is, how does a young person in secondary school get started, and what systems are in place in order to get high schools to encourage students to jump on board with these kind of programs?
Well, this whole concept about vocational education and training in schools has really been taking off, which has been exciting to see right across the country, because VET in schools, as it's called, is really a pathway for people, particularly in year 11 and 12, to be able to spend time focused on a career pathway that really interests them. And it's a precursor to be able to get into an apprenticeship or traineeship afterwards as well. So they spend about a day a week in that, and then they can also do placement opportunities as well over that 12-month period. So you can blend that whole thing together about what you love doing, which might be far more practical as well, and to gain a Certificate 2 or Certificate 3 in the process.
Absolutely. So you've heard people sort of address or express that education is not quite the right fit for them. I think I was one of those students as a kid. I was like, a little bit disruptive. I was a good student. But how does this approach to education, I suppose, perhaps empower the student and the individual to express themselves and find what they want to do?
Absolutely. I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it? Everyone learns differently, everyone experiences education differently as well. And so what this does, it gives an opportunity for people who are more hands-on, who are very practical, who love to be able to make things, do things in that sort of a way as well. And the vocational education and training pathway is very diverse. There's so many different types of experience you can do, whether it's business admin, whether it's, as I say, woodwork or not woodwork, whether it's carpentry, whether it's electrical, plumbing, any of those sort of things, but also hairdressing, the whole range of different experiences there. But it's for people who find that experiential part of training very helpful in their pathway. And people really come alive. So people who might otherwise have dropped out of school will go on and to stay right through the end of year 12, because they can blend the whole VET in schools part together with the rest of their education experience.
I like to think of people like this with a tactile mind, It's
exactly.
just the sort of thing that they love to do. So what programs does IntoWork have in place? And I suppose, how is it, say, a VET in schools course different to a subject like, as you sort of mentioned there, woodwork in high school when you're building bird boxes and such? That's my memory.
Yeah, exactly. I can remember doing those as well. A letterbox, I think, is what I did. But look, it is quite different, because people can, RTO, registered training organisations like ourselves, or TAFEs, will work together with the school. And the school actually then puts on a Certificate 2, a Certificate 3, which is a pathway through year 11 or year 12, which enables them to be credentialed in that. And it's a step towards them being able to go on and to do an apprenticeship afterwards, if they want to. But if they don't, it still gives them the skills at that early stage about how to be able to work more in that space. So I guess it's a bit of a taster, a bit of a feeder towards apprenticeships as well. So we work together with young people right across the school system, right across Australia, within all the states and territories. It's an opportunity for us to be able to work with them, engage with them, and then hopefully, if they're interested in that as a pathway afterwards, to be able to move into an apprenticeship or traineeship afterwards. So, and we're not the only ones doing it. There are many other providers similar. So people can go online, find out more about that, and we'll talk with their schools about that opportunity too.
Well, Paul, what have you noticed about the success rate for students that have entered these programs? Let's talk a little bit about results, I guess.
Yeah, look, one of the things that we found is we actually run a trade school, and people can actually go to a specific trade school as well. And we have 80% of the people who go through our trade school actually go on to an apprenticeship or traineeship into full-time work afterwards. But one thing that's fascinating about apprenticeships, if people do a trade-based apprenticeship, and you probably don't know this, Mike, but 94% of people who go through a trade-based apprenticeship go on to employment afterwards, which is a very high percentage.
It's huge.
And then out of that, 93%, when they assess that 6 or 12 months later, 93% have a very high job level satisfaction, which is fantastic, because often people can end up doing something they don't really enjoy very much. But I think because people are doing something that they love, they're passionate about, that they can get their hands dirty with as such, then they tend to stick with it too.
Again, there's those tactile minds. A perfect time to bring in our guest for today. And Kiam Couchman is the vet teacher with 13 years experience working as an electrician. She now works with high school students, helping them to gain the experience to get a head start when it comes to their careers. And it's my pleasure to welcome her to the program. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Now, Kiam, you've been working closely with high school students that are working on Cert 2 in electrotechnology. How does a student find their way into your classroom and get a bit of help?
So we're actually pretty lucky that a lot of the schools have vet coordinators in their school settings. So the vet coordinators have really been an integral part in pushing students towards doing TAFE courses as opposed to the alternative pathway of university. So the more exposure we get with them, which we have Alison going around schools and promoting us being able to deliver the courses within the schools, really sets students up to find us and come into the classroom and let me delve into their hands and minds. So
that's some pretty cool stuff, Kiam. But what positive changes have you seen in students as they make their way and navigate their way through the course as well?
The pressure's off for them in a school setting, and they're able to use their hands and do some kinesthetic learning, which keeps them engaged, because a lot of the students that might come through are actually disengaged and probably not wanting to stay at school, whereas this opportunity in delivering TAFE in the school setting enables them to do 3 days at school, 1 day of placement at a work experience, so they actually get to work with an employer and get some hands-on learning within the trade, and then a day at trade school. So it really helps students, as they continue to progress through the course, have a better indication as to where they might want to see once school's finished in Year 12. Because I think a lot of them, it's so drummed into them about the university pathways, but there's so many opportunities that they can get through completing a TAFE course. And, some of them come out with 2 Certificate 2s by the end if they start at Year 10, because AGA have been able to implement a fast-track electrotechnology program, which we can deliver in a year. So it enables them to walk away with a Year 12 certificate and 2 Certificate 2s at least.
I would have jumped on electrotechnology as a kid, I reckon. That sounds like something I would have absolutely done. But there's been a focus, an increased focus, I should say, on women in traditional trades. What changes have you seen in the school environment that are perhaps different from your own experience when you started out?
Well, we're definitely getting more women through in a school setting. So generally it's quite low as an apprentice. I think it's, we're sitting at 1 to 2% of the entire apprenticeship population. But if we can get them at a school setting, and by completing the course take 6 months off their trade school time, they get more experience within the trade. So I think as we start to get more, it becomes more acceptable by society, we start to see numbers start to grow within a school setting. And I'm really happy that I can be there as to inspire students that, if you are a woman, you can do these trades and you can finish at the end and you can get the license at the end. So we had a student at Somerville Secondary, and she actually did the Certificate 2 construction pathway. She did a Certificate 2 electrotechnology, and then she knocked off some units for a Certificate 2 plumbing. And by the end, she had 2.5 certificates. Well, she knocked off some units, a Year 12 pass, and she was able to get an apprenticeship. So, I think women are an untapped resource. So
Absolutely.
Hopefully we can get more through the high school and more in apprenticeships.
I love the way you describe knocking it off, getting it done. It's so good. So you're a person with a can-do attitude. You've even won on Deal or No Deal, I believe. What would be your advice to a student who is thinking about this as a possible career path? Perhaps not going on Deal or No Deal, but keeping it in realm of trades, but that's good too.
Yeah, it was actually a really good experience. I say do it because it's hard to, I feel for these students, it's hard to say, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Whereas when you do a Vet in Schools program, you can actually get some really great knowledge. You can get some hands-on life skills, being able to use a drill, being able to use different parts of tools and equipment, and it can sort of set you up. So I think if you can do it, just go for it. I mean, you don't really have anything to lose. You're going to get a Year 12 certificate. You're going to get a certificate too. You might not pick that trade that you do the certificate for, but you'll definitely get some units that will help you with another certificate and another trade. There's no disadvantages to having it go.
Yeah, absolutely. Kiam, it's a little more inspiring after speaking to you. It's quite good. But Paul, did you want to say something before I let her go?
Look, Kiam is a great part of the team there at AGA, which is part of IntoWork, and we deliver the training ourselves. We work together with TAFE, but it's a pathways for people, as you're rightly saying, Kiam, as people move from being able to trying to work out what sort of pathway they want to get into. Yeah. They can taste test it a bit, they can experience it, and they end up with good certificates through it all. So I think it's something that every student, every parent needs to have that meaningful conversation with their child about maybe it's something that you could explore and try out as well. So thanks, Kiam, you put it together so well for us.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. See you again soon. Very good chat from there. Paul, thank you so much for joining me on the program. There's only so many times you can stick a textbook under somebody and say, read, before you realise that perhaps it's not what they want to be doing, which is, I wish that was inspired when I was going through high school. I think if more people like our guests today were out there.
Absolutely. We have such a diversity amongst all of us, don't we, in how we learn and sort of pathways we want to go down. So it's exciting to hear more about that, and to have women in those sort of roles that Kiam's taken on is fantastic as well, and it inspires so many more people coming through.
Absolutely. Thanks again for your time.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, well, that's it from me for now. I want to thank you for your time, and of course remember to check out what the team at IntoWork has to offer. Of course, they're the sponsor for today's program, but I've been your host, Mike Loder, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Be well.